as I say, I'm Martin. I've been doing SEO for, God, as you can tell by my grey hairs, I've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing this for about 20, 25 years. I did a lot of training through Chester Uni, so we've developed search engine courses, digital marketing courses, everything, mainly targeting at small to medium-sized businesses. So what we're going to do today is very much dip our toes in the water, because we've got, according to the itinerary, we've got 10 minutes of me talking and then 20 minutes of you asking questions. It will probably be a bit longer of me talking, and feel free to ask any question any time you want. I will go on for as long as you're all listening. If in 20 minutes your all videos have all been switched off and everyone's left the meeting, then I will probably carry on talking. I'm going to share the screen. I've got a presentation, so I'll go through the presentation. But as I say, ask questions at any point. Anything you want to know, just ask. So if I share the screen, I just want to make sure everyone can see it. And strangely, when I share the screen, my screen seems to go a bit weird. But hopefully everyone can see the, I'm just going to press the button there. There we go. Everyone can see the presentation. So, okay, we're going to go through a number of tips. We're not going to go through it in huge detail. We're going to go through a number of tips, things that you could do tomorrow to hopefully start to increase your rankings on Google. The idea being that there are things that you can do simply, easily, and quickly. You can just get your head around and do them without worrying or spending too much time on it. There is, surprisingly, that picture which you can see, that's actually my happy face. I don't have a face, as you can tell, that's built for smiling or built for happiness, but that is my happy face. And that is the best picture of me I can find that represents me. So those of you that know, that is Giant Sized X-Men #1, the single best comic in the world ever. It is the only one that's worth owning. And when I first looked at buying it 20 years ago, it was about £1. And when I bought it about 3 years ago, it was considerably more than £1. So I really wish I'd bought it then. But that is the best picture to sum me up. If I press the button, hopefully this should shift. My technology is going to lead me down. Okay, right. So, why is SEO important? There is only one reason why SEO is important. If you're going to write a list of everything that you could do to market your business, if you're going to write a list of all the different marketing techniques you could use, everything from email marketing, digital marketing, content marketing, anything, the single thing that every business needs to be doing from day one is search engine optimization. If you're only going to do one thing, you do search engine optimization, and then you layer on the other activity on top of that. The reason is that if anybody is looking for anything, if anybody is looking for anything at all in this world, the first thing we do is we go into Google and we type into Google our search terms, what we're looking for, and we look and we see and we find things. It is the single most important thing that you can do. This graph here shows basically, if I can highlight it, yeah, this graph here, it works, your position on Google. So if you're in position 1, and the share of search you will get. So if 100 people type in dog groomer Cheshire, and you are the first dog groomer in Cheshire to come up, you will in theory get somewhere between 30 and 35% of those people visiting your site, in theory. This is based on thousands and thousands of websites and thousands of websites traffic. So in theory, if you're in position 1, you get 30%. If you're in position 2, you get about 15. Position 3, you get about 10. Position 4, you get about 7 or 8. There's a small spike on mobile because of the positioning of mobile, and then it basically tails off. 75% of people do not go beyond the first page, and we all know that's true, because actually what we do is, if I'm looking for somebody, I'll type in dog groomer. If there's nobody, I don't know why it's all about dog grooming, but that's just in my head at the moment. If there's nobody on the first page that I like, I will refine my search and I'll type in dog grooming in Cheshire. If there's nobody on the first page that I like, I'll refine my search and I'll put dog grooming Nantwich, dog grooming Tarpley, dog grooming whatever. There's somebody else. I'll admit them. There we go. Okay. So if you're not on the first page, you do not exist from Google's search point of view. It is the single most important thing you can do, because at the end of the day, you want to be somewhere, my highlighter works, somewhere between position 5 and position 1. That's the area you want to be in. It's not easy to do and it's not easy to achieve, but that's the area you really need to be in. The least you need to be is on page 1. 75% of users never go beyond the first page results. Google receives 40,000 search queries every second on average. This is apparently, you can all see that, that is a live count of how many searches Google has had today. So it's currently up to, well, I can't even count how many it's up to, but it's up to a shed load of searches. There are a shed load of searches every day. And every time a search is done, Google has an algorithm that calculates the order, the position you appear in, and that happens within seconds, okay? Every single time it is done. So there is nothing, I would argue, there's nothing more important than doing it. If I press the button. These are some of the factors. There are about 200 factors, give or take, that make up the algorithm that Google use. Google use an algorithm to work out the order in which we all appear. So if somebody types in marketing agency Cheshire, there's an algorithm that works out how high up I appear on the rankings. That algorithm is made up of about 200 different factors. So it's a calculation with 200 different bits in it. Some of the bits are more important than other bits. Some of the bits are based on, we think they exist, we think that's what they use, but we don't know. The thing you have to remember, if I can move this over, the thing you have to remember at all times is that Google's calculation is a black box. There is nobody except for the one person who's in charge of everything at Google who knows exactly what is in that black box. It is a secret. Anybody that emails you to say, I can guarantee to get you to the top of Google, has got to be lying, because they are not in control of Google. The only person who can guarantee to get you to the top of Google is Google. Anyone else is lying. No professional, proper organization will guarantee anything from a search engine ranking perspective. Anybody that does is lying, because Google's black box, Google's algorithm is a secret. What they do is they leak information every so often, and they say, this is important. You've got to decide whether you believe it or not. They say, this is important. You've got to decide whether you believe them or not. And they keep feeding out information to make you keep changing what you're having to do. But at the end of the day, it is a secret. So we all get every day emails from companies saying, I can guaranteed top of Google results, guaranteed first page. It has to be utter tripe, because nobody knows what's in the calculation. So what we do is based on experience and testing. So all of these factors are based on experience and testing. And if you want to, you can spend hours on various boring blogs and various forums talking to other search engine optimization geeks, people like myself who sit in the dark trying to work out what's the best way to do it. Or you can just do the basics. So these are all the factors. We split them into on-page and off-page, not all the factors, but some of the factors. On-page are things you can do on your website. Off-page are things that you can't do on your website. They're things that happen off your website. Now, because we've only got a short amount of time, we're not going to go through them all, but I'll just pick out some of the more important ones. You can see there are a hell of a lot of factors in here. Some of them are positives, some of them are negatives. Not my mouse will come back. There we go. So it's everything from descriptions. On-page tagging and descriptions are still important. Site freshness. What's the last time you updated your website? Google loves websites that are updated regularly, because what you've got to remember is that Google has to judge things in a fairly blunt tool, to be honest. And basically, if you have not bothered to update your website in 6 months, you are not as important as me, who updated his website yesterday, or D, who updated a website 3 days ago, or Raz, who updated a website a month ago. Kind of a shout out names from the screen. So if you cannot be bothered to update your website, then Google will think you cannot be bothered to be interested in your business, so you are not as important as people that are bothered. So we've got descriptions, we've got headers, we've got mobile speed and mobile readiness. We've got having an SSL certificate. If you do not have an SSL certificate, then you're not secure, so you can't be bothered to do your website right. How fast your website is. On average, if your website takes more than 3 seconds to load, people will turn off and they won't be bothered to go into your website. So Google's robot, which crawls your website, picks that up as well. Duplicate content, the URL you've got, usefulness and quality of your content. Google likes to think that it measures how good a brand you are, how good a company you are. And the only way you can actually do that really is by looking at some of the off-page factors and looking at what's on your website. So it likes to make better brands do better on Google. So it is reading your content, it is reading how useful your content is, it is reading how good quality your content is, And it's also looking at things like social media likes, social media activity, social shares. All these various things go together into the algorithm to say that Jonathan's company is better than Nick's company. And if Jonathan's company is better than Nick's company, then Jonathan's company is going to score higher up on Google than Nick's. And it is as simple as that. And every second of every day, this calculation is happening in seconds. So these are some of the factors. We can't obviously go through all of them, but at the end of the day, you've got to try and think that what you've got to try and get is a site that is good quality. You've got to try and write for customers and get a site that is good quality. So we've all seen sites that are rubbish quality. You go into a website and it looks like somebody can't be bothered to pay any attention to it. They've got a pop-up ad that pops up and is annoying. They've got badly written content that's full of spelling mistakes. They've got broken pages that when you click on them, it doesn't go anywhere. So it's all in all a poor quality site. What you've got to try and do is put your site into the good quality section. You've got to get your site into the good quality section. So you've got to avoid things like auto-generated content. You've got to avoid things like badly generated content. You've got to avoid things like broken pages, like slow sites. 100 different things you've got to avoid. What we're going to do is talk about some of the things you can do tomorrow, because some of this is quite complicated, some of it's quite easy. The things we're going to go through are titles, copy, headers, site speed, links, content, and social media. The reason we're going to go through this is because we work with 30 to 40 small to medium-sized businesses, and generally these are the things that they can do. These are generally the things that you can do quite easily that will increase your rankings. These are the things you can implement tomorrow that should have an effect on your rankings. One thing you need to bear in mind is, though, that this is a persistence and consistency game. It is like painting the fourth bridge. Once you start, you have to keep going. You can't really start this and then stop. And you can't start this and expect it to have an impact on your rankings straight away, because nobody knows how long it will take to have an impact on your rankings. We've done stuff for clients where they've gone from nowhere to page 1 in a week. And all we've actually done is change their web address. Other things, but the main thing is change the web address. We've got other clients where we've worked on them for 3 years and we can't get on page 1. It all depends on, if you think about it, if you want to be in page 1, position 1, then someone else has got to be in position 2 and someone else has got to be in position 3. So if all of a sudden you're in position 1, these people want to beat you. And it depends how competitive they are. It depends what they're doing. It depends what they're doing, how active they are, whether they suddenly beat you and you fall down, or these people suddenly beat you and you fall down. It is a hugely competitive marketplace, depending what product you're in. So, for example, we work on a broadband company. And broadband is extremely competitive. It is really difficult to get somebody on page 1 for broadband, for any term using broadband. We also work for a foot clinic in Liverpool, and it is an awful lot easier to get somebody on page 1 if they're a chiropodist in Liverpool and you want them to be in the first few places. It's an awful lot easier to do that. So it depends on the competitive of the marketplace. It depends on what other people are doing. So anybody that guarantees that they can get you to the top of Google has got to be lying, and anybody who guarantees they can do it quickly has got to be lying as well. It can take a week, it can take a month, it can take 6 months before you see any results at all. But it is a persistence and consistency game. Once you've started, you have to keep going. So titles, copy, headers, site speed, links, content, and social media. Titles are pretty simple. Within your website, there are 2 sets of titles. There are page titles and 3 sets of titles. 3 sets of titles. There are page titles, there are description tags, and there are alt tags. These are easy to find. As an example, if you are using WordPress, on the media library in WordPress, every image has an alt tag. Every image has an alt tag. And there's a little section on the site for alt tag. If you're using Shopify, you have to go into each image individually, and there is a button for the alt tag. If you're using Wix, it's the same. You have to go into each image individually, you click on it, and you can edit the alt tag. If you're on Shopify or Wix, equally, your pages have got page descriptions and titles, and you can go in them and edit them. Now, there is a lot of debate over how important page titles are. We have found when we work with small to medium-sized businesses, if they actually just change the titles and make things read properly, they start to call up Google. So there is a debate as to how relevant some of them are, but we found it works for people. So what you've got to do is you've got to alter the page title and the page description. The page title, we have a fairly simple approach to doing these things because this is the way it works, so we're fairly simple. What we always have is we start with the company name, and then we have a line, and then we have our keywords, and a line, and then we have what the page is about. So, for example, if I am a dog, if I'm Dave's dog grooming, I would have Dave's dog grooming, keyword dog groomer Cheshire, and then the contact us page, for example. And that is your page title. You set your page titles out so that each page has a separate title. The reason we do this, A, it makes it slightly easier because you've got a structure to follow to. B, it means that every page is different. And C, it means that I've put the keywords in. So I've identified the keywords I want to do well for, and I put them on each page. We then follow the same principle for alt tags. Alt tags are the tags that are attached to your images. It is a requirement, a legal requirement, that you have alt tags on your images anyway, but you go through editing the alt tag. So this here is a picture of one of the members of staff at a business, and that is the alt tag. So you've got the name of the company, you've got the keywords you want to do well for, and you've got the name. The reason it says staff is because when we were doing this, everyone was obsessed with GDPR, so we didn't want to put the individual's name in, even though you can probably work out what the individual's name is, but we didn't want to do it. So you've got the name of the company, you've got the keyword, and then you've got what the image is about. Or you've got the name of the company, you've got the keyword, and then you've got what the page is about. Your description is a little bit more sales-based. Your page description, this is an example, because your page description is far more what people will see when they click on the search results. So again, we try to make that a bit more wordy, a bit more advertising. But again, it's got to be different for each page, it's got to be interesting, and it's got to contain the keyword. You have to remember that Google is relatively simple. If you do not tell it that you are an events company, it will not know. I don't know what most of your businesses are, but if you do not know, if one of you is a dog groomer and you do not tell Google you are a dog groomer in Tarpley, it will not know. So you will not score, you will not get high on the rankings unless you actually tell it. So the first thing you can do is you can sit down and you can go through all your alt tags, all your page titles, all your descriptions. Whether you're on WordPress, Wix, Shopify, whatever you're on, there is a route to find the alt tags, the page descriptions, and the titles. And you can sit down and make sure every page has a title and a description, and every image has an alt tag. You have to make sure you do that. That's the first thing to do. It's very simplistic, but it does have an impact on your rankings. It will start to have an impact on your rankings. Probably the second thing you can do, which is easy and quite important, is copy. You must, there's been a trend in some websites to have minimal copy, to just have lovely pictures and no words, because that looks cool and looks trendy and it looks nice, and that's great. But Google likes words. So on this, for example, this is a website of one of our clients. We've had to go back through it because it didn't have any words on it. We've had to go in and start to put copy in, start to put words in that Google can read. You have to make sure that Google has things that it can read on your website. So you need to try and put your keywords in the copy. The key thing to remember is you write for people, not the search engines. You have to write as if you're writing in a normal way that people can understand. So you have to balance up writing for people and telling Google what you want it to know. So for example, on this one, we want to score well for wheelchair accessible vehicles. So we have made sure that we have got the words wheelchair accessible vehicles in the copy. And in this case, that is a header. We'll come to that as well, but that is a header. The search engine cannot read your mind, okay? It cannot read your mind. It has to be told what you want it to know. So for this brand, for example, constantly talks about WAVs as wheelchair accessible vehicles. The reality is nobody searches for WAVs, they search for wheelchair accessible vehicles. So we have to try and get the word wheelchair accessible vehicles in as much as possible. Next thing to remember is headers. And those of you who, when we used to do essays at school, I can't see pictures of most people, so I can't see how old everyone is. I don't know whether younger people still do essays or subjects at school, but when you used to do an essay at school, what we used to have, you'd write the essay, and at the top you'd have a header, you'd have a title. So my essay was about Henry VIII's 6 wives. I would have a header at the top saying this is about Henry VIII's 6 wives, and then I would break up my copy with subheaders. So I'd be writing something to say, oh, this is my introduction. When I used to do science, this is my introduction, this is my method, this is my apparatus. I don't know why I'm writing this because my writing is terrible, but there you go. That's the apparatus. That's all the things that I'm using. Now, Google has a similar, websites have a similar structure. You have what are called H1 tags, H2 tags, and H3 tags. And in simple layperson's terms, H1 tags are the ones that are big and in bold. H2 tags are slightly smaller and less bold, and H3 tags are slightly smaller and less bold. And so lo and behold, Google thinks that if you've got an H1 tag is more important than an H2 tag and is more important than an H3 tag. So what you put in your H1 tag is crucial. So we on this site, because we've been able to style it properly, we have made sure that the words wheelchair accessible vehicles are H1. Because although in simple terms it's bigger and bolder, it doesn't actually have to look bigger and bolder. So we've made sure that that is an H1 tag, because in simple terms, Google likes it if you put the keywords in an H1 tag. You need to also break things up with H2 and H3 tags. But at the end of the day, you put your most important keywords in the main header at the top of the page. We also, when we're writing blog posts, because writing blog posts is important, when we're writing blog posts, we tend to put at the bottom of each page an H1 tag that's all about what we sell. So if I'm a dog groomer in Cheshire, I'd write my blog post about how to wash a poodle. I'd have pictures of how to wash a poodle, and then at the bottom I'd say, we are an exceptional dog groomer in Cheshire, and I'll put that as an H1 tag. I'd make it small, but I'd still put it as an H1 tag. Because H1 is more important than H2 and H3. And again, if you're using WordPress, Wix, or Shopify, you can define what you put your headers as. You can define it quite easily. And you can also usually define the size, and you can define the color. Important that you do that. The next thing is site speed. And again, as I say, these are things that you can do easily. So you can easily set your titles up, you can easily set your alt tags up, and you can easily go through and make sure every single page has a header. Every single page is a header 1, and every single page has a header that's got the keywords in it. The next thing is your site speed. Your site speed is extremely important, because not only from a usability perspective, if people spend more than 2 seconds, 3 seconds trying to get into your site, in theory, they will click somewhere else. But the Google robot is quite a simple beast. If it goes into your website and it finds that it's taking too long to load, it goes somewhere else and it can't be bothered. If you can't be bothered to make your site go fast enough and operate properly, then you're not as good as me, but I can make my site go fast enough. Not mine, but as an example. There are lots of different ways, things that add up to the speed of your site. But the first thing to do, log on to your own site on a wired connection or on the street or on your phone. Log on to it in different places. Is it fast or slow? When you look at it, does it load quickly or does it not load quickly? The other thing you can do is go to a site which I'll put up. I can get my, I can get that to work. Bear with me. You can go to a site here, which is, it'd be nice to show it to you if I can get it to work. I can get this off my screen. If you go here, obviously you can't see this yet. There we go. If you go here, it's gtmetrics.com. GTmetrics will give you a feel for how fast your site is. You type in the URL, so you type in that one, and you test your site. And it goes through it. It looks at it as if it's looking at it from Canada in this case. And it will, as it goes through it, give you a report. Sometimes it's very quick, sometimes it takes a bit of time. I'll put it back up when it's finished if I can. There we go. There are 3 things, basically, 3 things, I've got 4 fingers. There are 3 things that make up the speed of your site. There's your host, If you've got a rubbish host that has got loads of sites on it and isn't very good quality and isn't very fast, then your site will be slow. Your site itself, the structure, the size, the system it's on, it's a bit of an area you've got to dabble with, but there are lots of things you can do to increase your site. The easiest way, if you're on WordPress, is to add a plugin called WP Rocket. WP Rocket is cheap. You simply add it to your site, install it, and off you go. You can't do that if you're on Wix, you're on Shopify, but generally the servers on Wix and Shopify are relatively quick. Relatively decent, but if you've got your own hosting, then you need to a lot of you need to speed it up. Speed is extremely important. This site, for example, here we go. I've got the speed score. Gets a D, 63%.
So Martin, while you're talking about speed, we've actually had a question. What is typically a good speed for a website?
It depends on your site, and it depends what you're selling. You need to be 70 to 80% on GT metrics. So if you're going to GT metrics, you need to try and be 70 to 80%. That's your objective. For me, if I can get up to 70 or 80%, I'm quite happy. If you're a business-to-business brand that only people that you and 90% of your traffic is on desktop, and so it's not on mobile, you can afford to be a little slower. The other thing to be aware of is you'll constantly get people sending your emails saying, I've tested your site and it's really slow. I can improve your site. Always treat those with a pinch of salt. We got one from a client last week and it was that this person tested their site and it's really slow. Well, okay, on GT metrics they get 78, which is okay. And if I look at it on the phone, yes, it is slow to load everything, but that's because it's a massively long site. And most people are looking at the top while it's still loading the bottom. One of the things you can never solve, or is difficult to solve, is things like this: your page size. Your page size is hard to solve because if you're a, if you're a WordPress site, WordPress, for example, is quite memory heavy, and every time you put a plugin on your site or you put an extra functionality on your site, you're effectively slowing your site down. Every time you make changes, you're slowing your site down. Every time you add stuff, you're slowing it down. This website is quite slow, but about even if you take a page on this website with nothing on it, it still gets a D, because the fundamental bit is WordPress and the theme they've put on it is top heavy and a bit slow. It's quite hard to get it faster. But put WP Rocket on. This slide used to get about 23%. We put WP Rocket on it and it's increased the speed significantly, which is obviously what we want to do. It's quite hard to do, but it is important. The first thing to do, check your site on GT metrics. If you're on WordPress, try and put something like WP Rocket on it. It's very easy to do. If you're on Wix or Shopify or something like that, it's harder to put those things on. But check your images. See if you've got sometimes you've got things like a slider that is slowing them down. Different types of sliders take up different memory, and you can change the slider and you can increase the speed. So that's site speed.
And Martin, something I've learned from your courses before, you can check what your key competitors.
Oh, you can put in GT metrics. You can put any one you want. You can. I mean, we do this with people all the time because obviously you look at yourself and you look at your competitors and see, why are my competitors on page 1 and I'm on page 2? Well, one of the reasons is that your competitor gets 80% because they've got nothing on their website and you've only got 50% or 60%. You need to increase it. But the first thing to do is get your own speed up. First thing to do is actually be aware of how fast your site is. Most of us, when we're working on a site, we are working at home and we log into our website from our broadband. So we think our site is pretty quick. Reality is you might be in a different area. You might be if you're a retail brand, somebody might be looking at your website on their mobile phone in the centre of Manchester and their site is pretty slow. So first thing to do is understand how fast your site is. Then start to work through it. A mistake a lot of normal companies, small companies make is they take a photograph on their phone and they upload it to their website. And what they forget is that photograph is 10 megabytes and they've uploaded a 10 megabyte picture to their website. Obviously, if you've got a 10 megabyte picture, that's going to take a lot of time to download and that will slow your speed down. And if you've got a slider with 5 pictures on it, all of which are 10 megabytes, we're going to suddenly find the speed of your site going down. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that you save your images for web. So you take your photographs and you upload them to something. There is a site called PicMonkey. There are other sites. All you've got to do is go into Google and type in Save Images for Web, and there'll be 1,000 sites. We use Illustrator, or if you've got an iPad, there's Photoshop Express and all sorts of things you can use to save for web. PicMonkey allows you to take a picture, save it for web. One of the reasons you have to do that is if you take a photograph, obviously it's got 10 million pixels on it and it's really big. If anyone tried to print a picture that they've copied off the internet, it tends to look a bit poor, because what happens is they take out, in effect, they cut out loads and loads and loads of pixels that you don't need. So that's one reason some people's sites are slow, but once you're going through your media library, you will see that. The other thing that's important, is really hard to do, is link building. It is still true that if you can get links from other people to your website, that will improve your rankings. But it's not as simple as getting links from other people to your website. You can go online and you can buy links. All you've got to do is go into Google and type in buy links, and there will be 1,000 people trying to sell you 1,000 good quality links from various places to your website. What is most important is if you can get one good quality link. I have a link from my website from Nantwich Town Council, hardly the most salubrious council or the biggest council in the world, but it is a .gov.uk URL. I have a link from a university again, because it's a .ac.uk link. There's nothing better than a good quality link from somebody to your website. And this is actually probably the hardest thing to do, because it's quite hard to get anyone to put a link from their website to yours, because you've got to build a relationship with them and you've got to ask them. It's quite hard. But what we tend to do with people is, firstly, most small to medium-sized businesses, we've all got contacts and we've all got friends. We've all got people with businesses. We've all got businesses, we've got friends with websites. They may or may not be 100% relevant. They may or may not be 100% brilliant. But it's still better to have a link from their website to yours than to have nothing. What would be great, and I say this every training session we do this for Chester University, it would be great if Chester put a link to everyone's website from their website to everyone that's attending the training, because that would be great. But you've got to try and get good quality links. There are ways to do it. You can do guest blogging, so you can write good quality blogs and you can then try and get your blog on other people's websites. The reason that's in italics is because if it's a little bit dubious whether it works or not. You can do online PR, that's a little bit dubious whether it works or not. What you've got to remember with Google is they have the calculation today, the calculation in 3 weeks' time might be different. The calculation in 6 months' time might be different. And it used to be that links from PR sites were worth having, and now they're a little bit more dubious. But links are hard to get. Yeah.
Sorry, Martin. I know that we're coming to the end of today's presentation, but we have had a couple of questions.
Yeah, well, I can keep going.
Just before we finish. Does Google consider the speed of your mobile site more important than the speed of your desktop site?
It considers them to be of equal importance, but your site it considers mobile responsiveness to be extremely important. So what it does is it looks at your website, certainly from a mobile search point of view. If your site is slow on mobile, you will rank lower. Basically, though, what you've got to try and do is aim to get your site as quick as possible.
Right, okay. We've also had another one. What is the difference between page score and slow score?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. Because that's a really good question, and I never actually have looked into it particularly in that much detail, because I'm not that bothered, if that makes sense. So why slow score? Why I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Because I don't know everything.
Okay, brilliant. And we've just had another one actually. Are pop-ups good or bad?
Bad. Well, no. Pop-ups. Google views pop-ups. If you've got pop-ups high up on the screen, it tends to think that bad quality sites have pop-ups high up on the screen. So if you've got pop-ups, it might give you a lower ranking. If you haven't got pop-ups, it might give you a higher ranking.
Right.
But all of this it might do. None of it is fact, if you see what I mean, because it's all based on experience and knowledge, not based on, it's what people think.
Completely. Okay, because we're running slightly short on time, what I'll do, Martin, is I'll let you finish, but I'll just remind everybody that we are going to share the slides and we will share all of Martin's details following the session as well.
Okay, just do one more slide because this is the last one. There is nothing. The other thing you can do, which we can all do tomorrow, particularly as we're all sitting around with probably more time on our hands at the moment. The one thing you can do is start to write content. Google loves words, it loves content. You should be writing one blog post every couple of days at the moment, if you can, and once we all get back to normal, doing it once a week would be good. You should be updating your pages. It likes to see that your page has been updated. If you can't be bothered to update your page, then you're not as good as someone else who has updated their page. So update the text. But the key is to be, well, one of the keys is to be useful, relevant, and talk around the subject. You don't just have to talk about yourself. It says it likes people, it likes websites that are useful to their audiences. So try and be as useful and as interesting and as informative as you can be. If you can provide customers with something that is useful and informative, A, they're likely to spend more time on your site, so they're likely to buy from you, but B, Google likes to read through informative and useful sites. I'm happy to take any questions that aren't related to why slow score. If anyone wants to stay on the call, other than that, there you go. Those are some tips. If you do them, it will increase your rankings, I hope, because it has increased the rankings of every client we've worked on in the last 8 years. There is a whole world of things you can do that's more than this, but these are simple things that you can do, and you can start doing them tomorrow without any help.
Fantastic. Thank you, Martin. That was really, really informative. I know I learned a few things from you there, apart from the why slow score.
Yeah.
Just to mention then, we are going to be hosting Lunch and Learns, and if anybody does want to be a host on one of those, please get in touch with us. If you could all do me a favour before you leave the call, what we'd like to know is, are people going to be working during the Easter holidays? You can simply let me know via the chat box. You can tick yes or no. We'd like to know because we're hoping to host some more of these, but we're not sure if you guys will be getting on with your DIY or whether you'll still be in front of your computers. Like I've said, we'll send the slides and we'll send a lot more information to you via email over the next coming days. Thanks so much for your participation today, everybody.
Somebody asked about social media. As I say, if anyone wants to stay on, I'm quite happy to carry on talking to anybody. You don't have, I'm happy to sit here all afternoon talking about it. Somebody asked about social media on the questions.
We've had a few answers. Yeah, somebody's asked.
P. Griffith, whoever that is, I can't see your face.
What are your tips on social media?
But as I say, I'm happy to. I can carry on. We can see people drop. It's like one of those. What's that thing with Paddy McGuinness? No like, you know, like. Yeah,
No like, you know, like.
I can't remember what it is. If you just see all these people going off.
I'll just check. Yeah, carry on answering those questions if you want, Martin. So what are your tips on social media?
Okay, right. I'll share the slot screen again, as I say. No, start video again. I've done. Share screen. Okay. Yeah. Because Google likes to see that you are a decent brand, it likes to see that you are active. And if you remember on one of the earlier slides, social media activity is one of the factors it puts in. So social likes, social activity, social being social. We found, as I say, by approaching social media from this perspective, we have managed to increase the ranking. So what we do is relatively simple, to be honest. We don't chase likes, we don't ask for likes, we don't chase spam, but we have found that if basically we sit at the beginning of the month and we use something like Hootsuite, or you can use Hootsuite, Sprout, or Buffer. I like Hootsuite because Hootsuite is free. If you haven't got an account, you can scroll down to the bottom of Hootsuite, there is a free account. They make it difficult for you to get the free account, but because they ask you about 4 times, are you sure you want the free account? Are you sure you want the free account? Don't you want the better account? Well, no, I want the free account. And the free account allows you to sit there for an hour at the beginning of each month and schedule out your posts, which makes sense. You can get 30 posts and you can get 3 channels. So you can do your LinkedIn, your Twitter, and your Facebook, or your LinkedIn, your Facebook, and your Instagram, and you can schedule it all out. You have to be active on social media because that's what they want you to be. It is unfortunately a game of playing with what Google wants you to be more than anything else. So what we do is we sit there at the beginning of the month and we try to find 15 pieces of information that are relevant or useful to our audience. So if I am I don't know what everyone's business is, but if I am I know what D is, so if I'm a charity, in Chester, then I will try and find information that's useful and interesting to my audience, stuff that's relevant to them, something that they may find valuable, something that may add something. So at the moment, for example, I know one of my clients is they do mindfulness and healthcare, and they're just sharing. They're not sharing stuff back to their website. They're sharing other people's information on how to cope with anxiety, how to cope with things at the moment. But we find 15 news stories, 15 things that are interesting. So we deal with a wheelchair accessible vehicle company. We find 15 stories about wheelchair accessible vehicles or wheelchairs or inspirational people with disabilities who've overcome things or have done stuff. And we schedule those out. So now we know that if we do nothing else for the month, we've got 15 stories. We've got a fairly active social media feed. And you can do that in about half an hour. If you know your own business, you can do that quite quickly. We then go in every day because everyone on social media, we all have our channels and we all have people we follow. So we will follow our competitors and we will follow people that are relevant and people that are interesting. And if I go in at 9 o'clock at night to Facebook and I see something useful and interesting, I will just share that with that page. So I might go in and find, in my case, I go in and find something from somebody about marketing that I think is quite interesting or be interesting to my audience. I press share and it goes up on my channels. And then I know, so I've gone from now, let's say I've got 15 things going on. I haven't added up how many of these are. I've added in 3, 4, however many there are. I've now got 20 things going on my social media feed without actually making much effort. I've then been writing content. So every week I'll put up a link to one of my blog posts. And those are the ones that I actually want people to look at. Those are the ones that I want people to read. Those are the ones that I want people to actually be clicking back to my website. Because on these sharing things, I'm not getting people back to my website. I'm not really, not pointing them to my website. I'm pointing them to my website here. And because I've been writing content for a while, for example, let's say you've been writing for a year, you try and do one a week. After a year, that means you've got 52 blog posts. That means you can see which ones people have been reading and you can see which ones people are interested in and you can refer back to those. You can have those as your blog posts. So if you write one a week, you can easily post one up a week. If you write one every 2 weeks, for the first 6 months, you post one up a week and then you post some older ones back up. So now all of a sudden, I've got a social media feed that's probably got about 25 or 30 things going on it every month. Things that are useful and things that are interesting. The key with social media in this context for SEO is to be useful and interesting. I then will start to think, okay, I want to link people back to one of my pages. I've got something going on. I've got a product, I've got a car I want to sell, I've got a cake I want to sell, I've got a particular service I want to sell. So actually I'm going to put on twice a month something that links back to my products. And those are the ones that I'm actually going to promote. Those are the ones I'm going to boost on Facebook to try and get myself traffic back to my website. I've then got things that just happen. So we might be in our business, if any of us ever go back into any office ever again, are allowed out of the house, and we might find that actually there's something really interesting happening. We've just picked up this piece of business, or a new client's come in, or something exciting's happened, or I've been grooming a dog and that dog's really nice, so I'm going to take a photograph of it and I'm going to post that up. So I mix that in with things that are going on. I mix that in with a regular business news update. And then if I am a retail brand, if I'm selling, I might do an offer Tuesday or an offer Thursday. And every Thursday I'll put an offer up. Every Thursday I'll put a discount code up. Every Thursday I'll do something and people then get to accept and understand what's going on. The reason we do this is because it's easy, to be honest. You can go into Hootsuite and you can schedule out most of this stuff in about an hour to 2 hours. And once you've done it, all you've then got to do is go in every so often and do stuff. And you know that you've got a social media feed from a search engine optimization point of view that is active, interesting, and useful. And that will affect your rankings. We've actually found by doing this, we've increased people. I know it looks fairly simplistic, but by doing it this way, deliberately simplistically, some of the clients' rankings has increased dramatically against doing it in a less structured way. It's actually probably had the biggest impact because once you've done your titles, you've done your alt tags, you've done your descriptions, this also forces you to write content. It's forcing you into a position where you're regularly updating your content, regularly updating your posts. And this has had more impact probably than site speed or anything else. Because actually once you've got all those things fixed, you've got them fixed. It's then about being ongoing, doing ongoing stuff.
That's brilliant advice, Martin. Thank you for that. We've got lots of thank yous in the chat box. But one final question for you. Does Google rank video?
It views video on YouTube, and Google owns YouTube. So if you've got a YouTube channel with video, you're a better brand than if you haven't got video, and you'll also rank higher up on YouTube. If you put video on your website, what that does is it slows people down on your website. If it slows people down on your website, it will decrease the bounce rate and increase the amount of time people spend on your website, so which will increase your ranking.
Brilliant, thank you.
So if you're going to do video is a great thing to do, basically. But put it on YouTube because Google owns YouTube. Put it on your website as a link to YouTube because that will slow people down.
Fantastic. Well, just lots of thank yous in the chat box there, Martin. So I don't think there's any further questions for you, but once again, thanks for your time today. You've been brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. If anyone, as I say, I'll switch off last if you want. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening.